a crime scene, it would have the fingerprints of all of us through what we purchase, which company we choose to insure as an insurer for our car or our home, and the banks where we put our money, the investments we make, and so on and so forth. And even universities where we go, where we teach, of which we are alumni, including those who silence debate around Palestine, claiming that there is not enough balance when denouncing genocide. And by the way, both me and Agnes Calamar, for what concerned the appalling decision of the University of Bern not to host a debate, I mean, we were open to the university to invite any pro-genocide scholar they could find. It's their decision just to silence the debate. However, if the genocide has not stopped, it's not just because there has always been an economy of the occupation. It's because the economy of the occupation has turned into an economy of genocide. And so there have been people and organizations that have profited from the violence, the killing, the maiming, the destruction in Gaza and in other parts of the occupied Palestinian territory, because it's not that the Palestinians in the West Bank and East Jerusalem are having the happiest time of their life as we speak. In the past 20 months, while the Israeli army, and accompanied by settlers, was devastating Palestinian lives and landscapes, the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange soared by 213%, amassing over 220 billion in market gains, including 76.8 billion US dollars in the past month alone. So clearly, for some, genocide is profitable. So what has happened is that the infrastructure that was profiting from the economy of the occupation has transformed and assisted Israel in this evolution. The report I just presented builds on a database of over 1,000 entities that I didn't have the time to investigate with the depth and to analyze from a legal point of view with the rigor that I have for 48 companies, along with their parents, subsidiaries, franchisees, licensees, and consortium partners across the sectors. However, if you read this report as a list, as another database, which my report doesn't intend it to be, I would have failed. I would fail. My report exposes a system, something that is so structural and so widespread and so systemic that there is no possibility to fix it and redress it. It is to be dismantled. And you know, had businesses and had the corporate sector observed due diligence, had it honored its commitment to do due diligence, even before October 7, 2023, he would have disengaged completely and totally from its entanglement with the Israeli economy. Because, first of all, it's a fiction that there is a line dividing, separating the good Israel within Israel and the bad Israel in the occupied territory. No, the economy is one. Israel's economy is one and one only, and encapsulates the colonies. The colonies do not exist because some fringy part of the Israeli society is pioneering into the wild, wild West Bank. No. It's because this is resolving the housing crisis in Israel. These people live and thrive within a system that is so connected, that is part of the Israeli state. And also, this is you can see that evidently when you look at the water grid, on the electricity grid. The occupied Palestinian territory does not exist as separate from Israel. So, I mean, member states can continue to reassure themselves that they might, à la limite, prevent settlement goods from circulating in their markets. But this is not enough. actually, it's just another, it will be another face-saving solution. Because, excuse me, when sanctions were imposed on apartheid South Africa, was it because of the crimes and the violence and the racism and the discrimination and the apartheid that South Africa was imposing on its non-white population, or for just what South Africa was doing in the Bantustan? Do you understand the performance of stupidity that we have all been part of for decades? And now it's the time to stop. If 60,000 people killed do not push us to taking seriously international obligations, then we're really, really beyond the pale. So here's what I conclude. There is no possibility to stepping out of this situation other than for member states to do what the International Court of Justice demands through its ruling and through its provisional measures. Imposing an arms embargo immediately is not about asking for a ceasefire. This is not a war. This is a genocidal campaign. And it's clear, and now it's either carried out under the pretense of humanitarian food distribution. This is a death trap. And we should learn really to be honest, including yourself. I mean, I've been really, really generous to the media, because the first corporate entity to be investigated in this mandate was yours. And it will come. But again, now it's time for an arms embargo, and it's time for businesses to cut ties with Israel. The very fact of engaging in something that concerns and translates into economic gain and profits, it's problematic, lest the companies and their executives are ready to face responsibility and even criminal liability. Thank you.
Thank you, Special Rapporteur. She will now take questions. We'll start in the room. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. The 48 companies that you name in your report, is there anything that you think the customers of those companies ought to be doing? Thank you.
Sorry, I should have said before. We're going to take about 4 questions at a time, and the Special Rapporteur will get to each one sequentially. Jeremy, please.
Orlando wants to.
Understand. Just a second.
But this is on, no? Okay. No problem.
Would you like to repeat your question?
No, I'm sorry. I was distracted. I'm sorry. I was distracted because apparently I misquoted a number. I have someone I have noticed. I have dyslexia with numbers, and I said 76 billion. This is what has been unmasked in 1 month. No, it's 67 billions. I read the other way around. I apologize. So what should consumers of these companies do? First of all, I would like to clarify that the first responsibility is not on the consumers. I mean, of course, I think that we should wake up and realize that we are part of a system where we are all entangled, and choices that we make in the UK or in Switzerland have an impact elsewhere, in Congo and in Palestine, for example. So it's good to be conscientious, but the first, and so it's important today to listen to those in the civil society, the scholars, the lawyers, investigative journalists who have exposed the entanglement of the companies we are clients of with the occupation. But the first responsibility remains with member states and then companies. So companies who do not divest should be held accountable. I do think that there is a possibility for consumers to hold these companies accountable, because we vote through our wallet, right? And therefore, probably this year, it's the most modest contribution not to support the erasure of Palestine is stopping normalizing the occupation by a click. So let's choose other ways to plan our holidays that Booking.com and Airbnb, because they have normalized the occupation with a click. They continue, even at this time, to advertise nice neighborhoods in settlements. Settlements are stolen land, and profiteering from the gains made in this way might amount to money laundering in certain jurisdictions. So we have to choose better. But again, main responsibility, states and companies.
Jeremy, I think. Please state your name and organization when you ask a question.
Jérémy Lange pour Radio France et RFI. Madame Albanese, deux questions. Une sur l'économie, la transition d'une économie d'occupation vers l'économie de génocide. Est-ce que vous pouvez expliquer en quoi une économie de génocide, selon vos termes, est plus profitable économiquement qu'une économie d'occupation simple? Je mets des guillemets. Et la deuxième question, c'est sur les compagnies que vous citez. Lockheed Martin paraît un exemple assez évident pour beaucoup de personnes. En quoi les autres compagnies que vous citez sont tout aussi coupables? Je pense à des compagnies comme Hyundai, Volvo, Caterpillar. Est-ce que vous pouvez expliquer en quoi ces compagnies sont tout aussi coupables de participer à cette économie de génocide selon vos termes?
Je peux vous répondre tout en admettant que cette enquête que je menais m'a tellement choquée que je pense, voilà, là aussi ce que vous percevez, la rage et l'horreur que j'ai, c'est parce que vraiment pour moi c'était tout à fait nouveau. Bon, il y a aussi des économistes qui disent seulement des juristes peuvent être étonnés par la réalité parce qu'on le savait. De toutes les façons, maintenant c'est important que tout le monde prenne conscience de cette réalité. Et là, je ne sais pas si numériquement c'est plus profitable, mais je peux vous dire, c'est-à-dire dans le long terme. Je ne dispose pas des instruments analytiques pour assurer ça. Mais si je vous dis que pendant ces mathématiques basiques, même les gens qui sont dyslexiques avec les chiffres peuvent le comprendre. S'il y a eu une augmentation de 220 milliards dans 20 mois et 70 milliards dans le dernier mois, qui coïncide avec la course au réarmement pour plusieurs pays, vous voyez où est la plupart des profits. Ce sont avec les compagnies de surveillance et les compagnies de production d'armes. Et c'est choquant, mais il y a une ligne, on peut tracer une ligne droite et directe entre ce qu'Israël a fait dans les derniers 20 mois à Gaza, en réadaptant les armements qui ont été fournis surtout par l'Occident, comment ils ont été customized pour créer le dégât qu'ils ont créé à Gaza. Et maintenant, ils sont en train de les vendre. Les drones qui tuent et le unmanned technology qui tue, en déresponsabilisant le tueur. C'est quelque chose qui nous jette tellement de loin, tellement de l'avant, qu'on n'a même pas la capacité d'absorber le dessin criminel qui est derrière tout ça. On doit arrêter tout ça. Et voilà, les profits que ces compagnies sont en train de faire sont la mesure de leur implication dans ce génocide. C'est une économie qui soutient ce qu'Israël, au lieu de le sanctionner, on est en train de le soutenir. Et là, je vous ai donné l'exemple du secteur militaire et de surveillance, mais c'est clair qu'il y a le milieu financier qui a provoqué une injection de capital dans le système. Et tandis que je dis, mais même les Israéliens ont payé avec leur économie et la réduction de salaire pour quelqu'un et pour certains, et la réduction d'emploi, la fermeture d'emploi pour plusieurs. Mais combien la population a peu s'appauvrir n'est pas réfléchi dans le stock exchange. C'est pour ça que je dis, ce n'est même pas quelque chose qui concerne l'État comme ensemble des citoyens. C'est les intérêts du secteur privé précèdent les intérêts de la population. Et on m'avait posé une autre question. Moi je pense que c'est important de comprendre comment cette économie que je disais est déjà en place. L'économie du déplacement et du remplacement a servi en tant que base pour se transformer dans une économie de génocide. Parce que vous voyez, les armements, les services disons l'équipement civil, les bulldozers et aussi les compagnies qui ont aidé à construire les checkpoints, les murs, les fences. Tout ça, tout ce qui est dans un autre rapport, j'ai appelé l'esthétique de la carcéralité, tout ça a été fait avec des compagnies qui ont profité. Ils ont profité dans le sens technique du terme. Ils ont travaillé des profits, ils ont fait des profits. Et ça a été plus facilement retourné envers Gaza. Les machines qui ont été utilisées pour détruire et pour construire au West Bank ont été utilisées pour détruire Gaza. Et c'est ça que je disais, il faut que les gens sachent quand ils achètent une voiture qui est très safe pour leur famille, pour les enfants de Gaza, ce logo est le logo des machines qui ont pulvérisé leur terre, parce que Gaza n'a pas été détruite seulement avec des bombes, mais avec des bulldozers. Et les machines, bon, comment se dit, weapons sont les mêmes, ont été, les armes, bon, voilà, merci, ont été vraiment retournées et modifiées, intensifiées dans leur utilisation à Gaza. Mais je veux aussi dire, c'est dramatique et ça m'a fait du mal de voir l'écrire parce que je pense à la souffrance que les Palestiniens et les Palestiniennes puissent sentir en lisant ça. Mais c'est vrai, moi je ne suis même pas la première qui l'a dit, sinon dans le contexte des Nations Unies, mais il y a un journaliste, Anthony Lowenstein, qui a documenté tout ça, et franchement, ça a ouvert les yeux à plusieurs de nous, en disant la Palestine a toujours été un laboratoire. Mais en fait, plus que ça, un terrain dans lequel tester des technologies, et pas seulement militaires, et pas seulement de surveillance, que c'est quelque chose qui se tourne envers nous, mais aussi des technologies comme le water dripping, irrigation. Elle l'a fait avec l'eau volée aux Palestiniens. Ça, c'est pas de la recherche nôtre. C'est quelque chose qui ressort d'un vol institutionnalisé. Voilà.
Merci. Catherine Fiancambo-Conga, France 24. Pour faire suite à la question d'un de mes collègues sur la responsabilité des consommateurs, j'aimerais entendre vos réflexions sur la responsabilité de la presse et de ceux qui entretiennent certaines versions de ce qui se passe dans les territoires occupés. Merci.
Non, je vais être vraiment bref sur ça parce que ce n'est pas le sujet de mon investigation. Avec beaucoup de respect, je dis que c'est un sujet vraiment que j'ai souffert à ne pas aborder, mais ça demande une investigation en tant que telle. Parce que vous voyez, ça, ce n'est pas le premier génocide où les médias font un travail, comment dire, un travail pourri, voilà, un mot gentil, et des médias plutôt que d'autres. Mais voilà, c'est quelque chose qu'il faut investiguer parce qu'il y a des responsabilités. On a eu un manufactured consensus autour de certains arguments en défense d'Israël, mais franchement, c'était pas dans le long terme, ça n'a pas favorisé Israël. Je dis les Israéliens et les Israéliennes, tout le monde maintenant, en gardant en pied ce système paye. Mais là, j'espère qu'il y aura des autres mécanismes qui entameront l'investigation sur les responsabilités des uns et des autres. Mais bien sûr, si dans le cours de mon mandat j'ai l'opportunité, j'aimerais bien le faire moi-même, parce que j'ai collecté dans mon expérience à moi voilà, c'est la façon, les médias certains médias ont la tendance à construire ce qu'en anglais s'appelle des overton window, qui c'est vraiment un contexte très limité et très partiel d'analyse. On part toujours sans questionner la prise de position de l'État d'Israël, un État que je veux rappeler à tout le monde est accusé dans des procès internationaux comme État ou à travers ses fonctionnaires publics pour génocide, crime contre l'humanité, crime de guerre. Et alors on peut aussi prendre une certaine distance par les propos de ses représentants. Voilà, surtout parce que les médias font disons, la transmission et le filtrage de ce qui ressort du gouvernement israélien, mais ils soutiennent des choses qui sont des propos génocidaires. Mais on ne les voit pas, on ne les entend pas si on regarde et lit beaucoup de médias occidentaux. Mais ça va finir. Pour moi, ce n'est pas une question de si, c'est une question de quand. Quand. Pardon.
A question in the back, and I think we have to move to some questions online soon after.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Satoko Adachi. I work for Japanese daily newspaper Yomiuri Shimbun. Could you give us a sense of how many % of the Israeli working population is engaged in either the economy of occupation or the economy of genocide? Thank you.
I don't know, I've not investigated that.
But approximately the entire population, or?
The Israeli Work Federation. Sorry, probably I didn't understand.
You didn't understand? Okay. I repeat my question. I just want to get a sense of how many % of the Israeli working populations are engaged in either economy of the genocide or the economy of occupation.
Can you hear me? So, looking at the surveys, I can tell you there is still a lot of support, ideological, political support for the choices the Israeli government is taking when it comes to Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem. While there are brave Israelis and international activists, the only ones who stand with their own body in between the soldiers, the armed settlers, and the Palestinian villagers attacked, the majority is either inactive, indifferent, and there is a significant part of the population which supports the most settler, the colonization-driven government, more explicitly colonization-driven government that has ever led the state of Israel. How many participate, benefit from the economy in a state where there is not one sector other than the NGOs that stand against occupation, war crimes, apartheid? I cannot tell you. But again, today, we should, as I said, we should stop looking at Israel and the occupied Palestinian territory as if they were two different entities. And this is why I call for sanctions to be imposed on the states. And this is something that hopefully will lead to an awakening of the Israeli society itself. And I resent the limited engagement I have with this society. And I want to make the point that the few times I've been asked for an interview by Israeli TVs, then have been cancelled. I've been available even when they were late, and then they have cancelled. So there is no possibility for me to pass these messages. But I do firmly believe that the Israeli society is also with very different sense of responsibility, part of the, victimized by this apartheid, because they are indoctrinated to a point of dehumanizing the Palestinians and not recognizing them as their peers. And this is unfortunately a state endeavor that comes from afar.
Thank you. We're just going to move to some questions online. We have Yuri.
Yes, thank you. I have two questions, if possible. So the first one will be about the fact that the US administration, it seems that they're trying to have you out from your mandate. Some US medias say that the Trump administration sent an official letter to the Secretary General in order to have you out. Do you have any comment on that? And is it true? Because for now we have this only through media. And my second question is regarding the creation of a special tribunal for Israel. Is it something that you will support if it will be pushed by different countries? Because, for example, when it comes to Ukraine and Russia, the Western countries are the first that want the creation of a special tribunal. Do you see a kind of volunteers from these same countries when it comes to Israel, and do you think that it can happen one day?
I serve with a lot of pain and sacrifice this mandate upon request of the Human Rights Council. Not just what happened in the last 3 months, the fact that the council embraced, without challenging it, the decision of the finding of the coordinating committee that have not acted in violations of the code of conduct, was reassuring, because the only thing I wanted to do 3 months ago, after engaging so much of my time and sacrificing so much of my own life to serve this mandate with honesty and integrity, I really wanted to present this report, because I knew that, I really believe that while member states are aware, and people are aware of the violations, it's difficult to see the system, and many are genuinely surprised of this picture, what I shared. And what reassures me is that what I've seen today in that room at the Human Rights Council is something I've never seen. Forget the applauses, but I've never seen such a almost wall-to-wall support and endorsement for my mandate before. So yeah, I accept that there might be some divergent views, and we can live with the fact that we agree to disagree. I'm a UN Special Rapporteur, and I should be respected as such. If any member state has issue with it, they can talk to their colleagues in the Human Rights Council. And the creation of a special tribunal. Look, I do believe that justice is absolutely necessary. I've often said that while we have international courts, we have the International Criminal Court, we have the International Court of Justice, we also have universal jurisdictions over the crime of genocide. And I do imagine the Palestine trials. People sometimes ask me, do you imagine the Nuremberg trials for Palestine? Yes, I imagine the Palestine trials, which will be the full realization of justice across the border, because crimes are across the border. Human rights violations clearly show that there are responsibilities across the border, and therefore I want to see lawyers and practitioners, barristers, invested in supporting civil society and work with judges and prosecutors to deliver some justice. I'm not given thoughts yet, consideration myself to the idea of a special tribunal, while I do think that the question of Palestine is so big, is so overwhelming, the injustice that the Palestinians have experienced, which doesn't take anything away from the injustices that the Jewish people have endured and suffered for centuries, which is also what triggered somewhat and entered into Palestine, but never one injustice as justified another injustice. So now it's the time to look at what for 77 years, actually for 100 years, the Palestinians have endured, and probably one ad hoc mechanism would make sense. However, I also know that accountability per se, retributive justice, and even political solutions that take into account and realize the rights and freedoms of all, because this is the only solution that I see, the only political solution that I see as necessary and viable. Then it will be up to the Palestinians and the Israelis to decide in what form of state, 33 years later, the beginning of the peace process, they want to live in one state, two states, three states. It's up to them to decide. However, I also think that the word that particularly my part of the world struggles with, and it's very necessary both for the Palestinians and the Israeli, is healing. Healing. There is a huge sense of trauma, and probably we can't even reckon the depth and of it right now, as the Palestinians in Gaza will have to survive, will have to be helped recover from what they have suffered. And they will need all our humanity, all the humanity that we have been prevented from showing them, but also the Israelis will need healing. Because when they will realize what they have done in the name of an ideology that has turned into a political doctrine and that has sent its youngest citizens into carrying out a genocide called a war of revenge, they will need more support than others in staying solid and mentally sane. So this is what I think.
Thank you. Olivia, also online.
Thank you very much, Ms. Albanese. Olivia Leopolova from Reuters here. I was just interested in what kind of response you had from your report. I think your report mentioned that you contacted a number of companies that were named. Like, have you had any kind of good engagements with those companies? Have any of them been willing to kind of sit with you? Have they kind of suggested any potential shift in their business models? And then secondly, this is just related to something you said in the council. You described the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation as a death trap. I was just wondering what evidence in your role as Special Rapporteur you've heard in terms of some of the types of injuries that people have been sustaining while trying to receive food aid, but also if you could maybe help us with a clarification, because the GHF has consistently said that these deaths are not happening near its sites. Do you believe that is an accurate statement by the GHF?
So first of all, I've notified all companies that have been named in the report, and I've not just shared with them the facts that I found in violation of international law. For each of them, I've developed, and this is something that goes beyond what has been done in other similar cases. For each of them, I have provided a detailed analysis, a case-by-case legal analysis of where I found their non-conformity with international law translating into violation of the right of self-determination, other human rights violations, and even war crimes or crimes against humanity, and to an extent in which cases they could be embroiled in the crime of genocide. So following this, 18 companies replied, the others didn't. And of these 18, I can say that only a small number engaged with me in good faith, because a number of them reasserted what I had said, and saying that there was absolutely nothing wrong, that I was in the sense I was hallucinating, I was not reading international law correctly, and that's okay, we will see. Clearly, they don't understand international law. Clearly, they think that that international law is there to make excuses. And frankly, they are in good companies, because we just come from 20 months in which international human rights law violations have been justified as compliance with international humanitarian law, like forced displacement renamed, rebranded, like evacuation orders to population moved into the safe zones, or safe zone, death zones, which have become safe zones, collateral damage, human shields, and even the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is yet another chapter of the humanitarian camouflage. And I also think they are in good company when it comes to member states, because it's incredible how member states, for example, European states, use the European Union to justify their non-compliance with their international law obligations. Look, it's very, very simple. The International Court of Justice, because everyone says, no, we cannot call genocide because there is no court determination. First of all, since January 2024, the court recognized the risk of irreparable harm to the Palestinians in Gaza under the Genocide Convention, which means they recognize the plausibility of genocide, which means that this is the moment the obligation to prevent kicked in. So if one has to be serious about reading international law literally. But, they say, no, but the European Union doesn't allow, we are waiting for other UN member states to take measures to suspend the agreement. No, you need to suspend your transactions with Israel because you have signed international treaties, and because some of the violations that are under our eyes amount to crimes. So there might be a complicity. And therefore, it's so sad as a European to see that the European Union, such a noble institution, has become the index behind which to hide in order to justify the non-compliance with international law. So it's in the United Nations as well, because when I say, yeah, but you should disengage and impose an arms embargo, like member states from the global majority are already doing, by the way, yeah? The Hague Group is a very small but noble attempt to start from addressing the root causes instead of a symptom for a change. So I do believe that nonetheless the companies need to understand, and this is why I was so anxious to have this report presented. And so this is the only good thing that I've really the silver lining of this past months, despite all pressure, seeing that this report would allow people to understand, to have no further excuses, being directly linked to this occupation, this unlawful occupation, because the International Court of Justice has said the occupation is unlawful. So we have a decision of the International Court of Justice saying this is unlawful. Member states have to disengage, not to recognize as illegal, not to aid and assist, ensure that a cessation, and even ensure that there are reparations from Israel to the Palestinians in the occupied Palestinian territory. So in the face of all these violations, how can ever be argued morally and legally that a private actor is allowed to do what a member state is not allowed to do? So again, I think that this is a pivotal moment. There have been other defining moments, as I was saying, in the Council, in human history, to bring businesses which normally escape accountability to account. And this is this moment. Palestine is really forcing us to that test. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is absolutely a death trap. I wouldn't know how to call the 600 people who have been killed while trying to reach aid. Also, so first of all, this is the most, the term humanitarian absolutely cannot be utilized in a serious fashion toward that thing, because humanitarian aid must follow certain principles: the principle of humanity, the principle of dignity, the principle of protection, of human life, so creating no harm. This creates harm. It's not a dignified way to distribute food and aid. It's not providing all the aid that is adequate. So what are we talking about? So without even looking at it as a killing machine, it's not providing aid. And again, I restate, it's ludicrous. It's ludicrous that the international community is not forcing, is not breaking the blockade, because this is the only sensible thing that should be done right now. Send all the countries which have a port in the Mediterranean Sea, should send a navy with medical personnel under their responsibility, under their flag, medical personnel, food, and any other necessary equipment to save life, including baby formula. So this is what member states should do. Instead, they stay there criticizing at best the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Again, this is one of the most sadistic exercises in intellectual gymnastics I've ever come across. And then the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation are saying that the killing is not happening near the sites. Well, I've gone through plenty of video evidence. Of course, neither you nor I are there. I wish journalists could be allowed in. The fact that it's not happening while all the journalists that are available in Gaza are being killed one by one, and we have surpassed the 220 now. It's evidence that probably Israel doesn't want further testimonies, further witnesses in this. What else can I say?
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Robin Millard from AFP. I don't know if you've had the chance to see what Israel has to say about your report. They said, and I'm quoting here, that it's motivated by an obsessive, hate-driven agenda to delegitimize the state of Israel. And they say that your report is, again I'm quoting, is legally groundless, defamatory, and a flagrant abuse of office. What is your response to what they have to say? Thank you.
I have no comment.
Yes, please go ahead.
Bonjour. Madame Francesca Albanese, vous êtes peut-être l'une des premières dames responsables qui avait dit au début, qui avait parlé de génocide. Maintenant, on voit, depuis que vous avez parlé, d'autres voix s'élèvent même en Europe pour dire, ou faire allusion qu'il y a un risque de génocide. Avec ce rapport d'aujourd'hui, dont vous parlez de l'économie du génocide, est-ce que vous pensez qu'il va y avoir des répercussions ou on va dire, Albanese, comme disent les Israéliens, elle fait des rapports qui ne sont pas crédibles et on passe à autre chose? Merci.
Je n'ai pas la boule de cristal pour voir dans le futur. J'aimerais bien, et voir qu'il y a des conséquences. Bon, je l'espère, mais ce que je vois fermement, et ça je le vois, c'est qu'on est dans un point de transition, et c'est comme une jonction. On doit décider là où on va aller. Et moi, je sens qu'il y a un vent de changement. Ça vient tout d'abord par les gens. Les gens comme moi, je pense comme vous, des gens qui ne contrôlent pas les armements, les algorithmes et des grandes richesses amassées et ne veulent plus que de ça. Ne veulent plus voir des corps et d'âmes d'enfants, d'adultes, de femmes, d'hommes brisés. Ça va quoi, ça suffit. Et il veut aussi voir qu'il y a du sens dans le mot justice. Et là, disons, je pense que la fracture, que tolérer tout ça et laisser tout ça se passer le jour par jour sur notre éléphant, quand même nous a endommagés. Et alors je vois qu'est-ce qu'il peut arriver si on continue dans ce chemin. Ce qui s'est passé au Liban, ce qui s'est passé en Iran, c'est tout à fait illégal. C'est tout à fait illégal et c'est hors discussion. Attaquer un pays, agresser un pays pour n'importe quel souci qu'on a, tout en tuant la voie diplomatique, est une agression, et aussi une agression contre la Carte des Nations Unies. Et ça se passe systématiquement désormais. Je dis, les autres 191 États membres qui n'ont rien à gagner par, disons, ce partenariat qui franchement a fait de la destruction au moins dans l'attente de détruire le système multilatéral. Ça semble un objectif. Qu'est-ce qu'ils ont les autres à gagner? Rien. C'est pour ça que je dis il faut virer vers un autre chemin où on respecte un minimum de règles qu'on s'est données. On respecte. Là, on est devant des gouvernements qui montent tout le temps, qui ne sont pas capables de respecter, je dis, même pas les traités internationaux, mais même ce qu'ils ont dit eux-mêmes. Au microphone devant la presse il y a quelques jours. Et c'est pour ça que je dis on ne peut pas tolérer et on doit rejeter cette façon de gérer les relations internationales sans ambiguïté et sans opacité. Et ça va être dans l'intérêt de nous tous et toutes. Et on peut on peut démarrer de ce point-là.
Thank you. Yes, please go ahead.
Amina Kalash pour le média. Vous avez justement incité les ONG, les syndicats et aussi les citoyens à travers votre rapport pour intensifier justement les campagnes de boycott et de désinvestissement. Quels sont les effets concrets que vous espérez? Et vous avez aussi nommé plusieurs entreprises européennes et internationales. Est-ce que vous avez eu un retour depuis sur votre rapport?
Moi, je pense que le retour le plus important, je les ai eus dans les dernières 48 heures après la publication du rapport. J'ai vu que même plus encore que le rapport sur le génocide, il y a eu une réponse massive de la presse, solidarité infinie par plusieurs acteurs de la société civile, y inclut les communautés juives dans plusieurs pays. Et surtout les communautés palestiniennes. Et ça me touche beaucoup parce qu'ils sont tous les deux en train de vraiment souffrir de son parallèle et pour ce qui se passe. Et ça m'a touché beaucoup la réaction des États membres. Bon, c'est pas évident d'être ému par la réaction des États membres, franchement. Mais là, ça m'a touchée parce que vraiment, ils ont lu, tout le monde, de l'Est au Ouest, du Nord au Sud, ils ont lu le rapport, c'est clair. Ils ont eu le temps de l'envoyer en urgence à leur capitale et d'avoir une réponse. Et la majorité absolue, si ce n'est pas la totalité, a exprimé son soutien, pas seulement au rapport, au mandat. À mon mandat. Et ça, c'est une réponse très forte aux États qui ont pris la parole. Moi, je pense que les États qui m'ont accusé n'ont même pas vraiment pris conscience de la réalité qu'ils ont provoquée. Mais quand même, n'importe. Moi, j'ai des épaules assez fortes pour éviter le danger qui vient aussi de l'attaque à ma réputation et tout. Je dis, moi, je suis plus à moi, mais non, dans ce service au Conseil des droits humains et ça va, je pense. Il y a une autre partie de votre question qui est ce que la société civile, les travailleurs et tout peuvent faire. Comme dans d'autres situations, comme en Afrique du Sud, parce qu'il ne faut pas l'oublier, les États membres ont été, dans le contexte du démantèlement de l'apartheid, ont été les derniers à joindre le mouvement qui a commencé avec l'action de solidarité de campagne internationale, de travailleurs au niveau international, avec un mouvement de résistance, surtout de la communauté discriminée en Afrique du Sud, même de la communauté de Blancs de l'Afrique du Sud. Il y a eu un mouvement qui s'est bâti dans les années. Les États membres ont été les derniers à comprendre qu'il fallait imposer des sanctions. Finalement, on l'a fait. Mais ça m'a vraiment frappé qu'il fut l'ancienne ministre des Affaires étrangères de l'Afrique du Sud, Madame Naledi Pandor, qui dit un jour, ça suffirait que pendant un mois, tout le monde commençait une grève, un strike. C'est difficile aujourd'hui. Parce que aussi le monde des travailleurs est beaucoup plus affaibli, tout le monde est fragilisé par le même système qui est mis en cause aujourd'hui. C'est pour ça qu'il faut avoir des règles qui protègent l'individu, les travailleurs, qui protègent l'environnement. Ça, c'est un moment de changement. Et tous les mouvements qui sont en train aujourd'hui de lever leur tête et de leur voix à soutien de l'existence, parce que de ça on parle, de l'existence du peuple palestinien, vient des mêmes milieux qui sont en train de protéger les droits humains et les droits de l'environnement, les droits vraiment à la justice dans d'autres contextes. C'est pour ça que j'ai évoqué le rôle important que chacun de nous peut jouer au sein de nos sociétés, parce que je pense que c'est le moment on se rend compte qu'on est une seule famille humaine, au-delà des différences de religion, de race, si on veut encore utiliser ce mot horrible, d'ethnie et tout. On est là et on doit peut-être retourner à s'aimer un peu plus et à se souvenir que le changement du système ne commence pas sans changement à l'intérieur de nous.
Thank you. Beyza from Anadolu.
Thank you, Ms. Albanese, for this presser. I just want to return to the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. And after the way you described the organization, I want to ask, what do you see a need for an urgent need case in front of ICJ or ICC over recent killings of aid seekers near the mechanism? Thank you.
I'm really reassured by the fact that this company has been, this entity has been deregistered. I hope this is the right term, because I saw it in between the interactive dialogue and the press conference, but so I see that it doesn't have necessarily a protected status in Switzerland, in Geneva anymore, and this is reassuring. However, there is a need, again, there is a need for accountability, no question about that, but I think that we need to get out of the chronicling approach and mentality. Of course, each incident requires analysis and investigation, but we need to look at the ensemble, step away from the detail. Everything is happening in the context of a intentionally destructive assault that Israel has launched against the Palestinians in Gaza, which is also echoed and mirrored by the violence that has escalated and intensified against the Palestinians in the West Bank. Really, there is little capacity to understand that the two pieces of these fragments are together. The Palestinian territory that Israel has occupied since 1967 is one. It should be treated as a territorial unity. And so Israel is unleashing violence against the Palestinians with the same animus, with the same spirit, moving them out, and with all the means possible, clearly. And I do believe that it's necessary to see that this is not the first genocide, that consists of several other crimes, and it's in the in the interrelation and interplay of all these conducts and of all these crimes that one can also see how abandoned the Palestinians feel to this criminal design and to their destiny in their situation.
Isabel?
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you very much for this press conference. You said that only a small number of companies accepted to engage with you after receiving your report. But I would like to know if any company or a few companies told you that they will reassess or analyze their businesses in Israel, or businesses that affects the occupied Palestinian territories. And also, a second part of my questions, I am sorry if I focus on one company, but you mentioned a trying building a Spanish company, and I would like to ask you, because you mentioned in the report that they participate with other company in to expand the public transport in Jerusalem. But I would like to be precise if these expansions are attached to East Jerusalem. What is the problem in this case? And if this company has replied something to you. Thank you.
Yeah, as I said, only a small number of companies have really engaged in good faith, and one in particular, till the last conversation where I realized that there was probably not much good faith, because clearly there was an interest in not having their name on the report, which I understand, but no, I've seen no sign whatsoever of readiness to disengage, rather the contrary, which doesn't mean that this will not happen. I think it will happen. And but even if you think of for me, the most shocking one, and it's a peculiar, I mean, not a peculiar, but it's particularly serious for me that the Norwegian pension funds stays engaged in the occupied Palestinian territory by supporting businesses, because I've really engaged with the government of Norway, with which I've always had really good and solid, respectful engagement. But again, the Norwegian pension fund, I mean, the engagement I've had so far with their governing body and their ethic council indicates that there is clear misunderstanding of international law obligations. So I truly hope that this report will give the possibility also to the civil society, to the international lawyers in Norway, like in other countries, for the other companies and the other entities named, to engage with the government. And otherwise, if this doesn't cease, well, there should be accountability. So, for example, again, staying in Norway, I've seen parliamentarians, for example, starting to confront the government more robustly. I've also seen in recent hours the divestment from 2 companies, which I welcome, and this needs to continue. For what concerned the company, the Basque company you mentioned is the CAF. The CAF participate with other companies in expanding the public transport in Jerusalem. And it's the Jerusalem Light Rail, a consortium which is as also mentioned in the OHCHR database, in the sense the consortium that CAF has established is with companies mentioned, with at least 2 companies mentioned in the database. So at the time, the first problem is that at the time other companies have withdrawn from their engagement and partnership with UN database listed companies. CAF has not done it, but also the lines that CAF is involved in building include part of their tracks in the West Bank, and these lines connect colonies with Jerusalem. The colonies are connected through these transportation lines with Israel, and as I said, this is illegal, and it shouldn't happen. This company is helping Israel facilitate the replacement of the Palestinians and the strengthening of the colonies, which are in and of themselves, as I've said many times, a war crime, a violation of the international humanitarian law framework.
Thank you. I think that's all the questions we have.
Another element that I should add, because it also shows how the businesses are connected. There are other companies that I've mentioned in the report, like Dosan and Volvo excavators and machinery that have been used, and the materials that other companies like Heidelberg have provided have been used to supply the building of the light rail bridge. So again, it's a system. It's really a system.
Thank you. I think it's the last question we have time for today. We've already run over time. Luisa, can you send your inquiry and we'll make sure that the Special Rapporteur gets it. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you very much to the Special Rapporteur. Thank you all for your interest in her work.
Thank you.